It's it's Tuesday, June 14th. On the calendar, it says Flag Day. I used to have a Sons of Italy calendar and a Boys Town calendar. I have specific draws in my personal space, and while I was away, the psychopath that calls herself a mother, being Linda Gunder, went into the drawers and threw out all of my personal belongings. This is an ongoing theme throughout my life. It's hard to hold on to any memento or anything important, like a calendar. When somebody goes through your personal space constantly and just decides on your behalf what's important and what's not and just throws it out. Fucking piece of shit. This is how horrible humans are. So here we are. So there's the flag. So today, in the mail, more useless shit, comes, here's the postage. It looks like an attempt to pretend that there's some kind of election going on. It says, easy, fast, contactless check-in. But it has multiple alphabets I can't read, or multiple cartography or calligraphy that I still can't read because they didn't teach it around here. But now this is what's voting in New York. I don't know how this change came about. I don't know who perpetuated it, who's allowing it. It's a little confusing from neglected, abused, and abandoned, which is the place that I'm in at the moment. So it arrives, and now it says on it, there's some kind of, it gives you locations of borough offices, or it's giving me in this moment in the year 2022. But there's no directions. There's no who's running on what. There's no names associated here. Look, oh my gosh, a fancy card. But this is a scam. This is fraud. Or this is a bigger problem going on. Again, I'm in a blue state. I'm registered as something else, not blue. And yet my voice is being completely stolen since I was 18. When I moved into New York City when I was 18, or 17, turning 18, they said we had to register to vote. Couldn't leave the class, otherwise he'd fail us. We had to fill out that card and hand it to Mr. Flood at St. John's Preparatory, otherwise he'd fail us. So we said, well, what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican? Like, things nobody taught. What's with this election thing? What do you mean how often is it? Is there a calendar? I mean, it says this word. I've heard the state media use polling, and it says there's polling places. But yet there's never a calendar, a conversation, there's never been a phone call, there's never been big brother, big sister, little sister, holding your hand, like telling you, okay, so here's the agenda items, here's what's going on in New York City, there's no community involvement, which leads me to believe that there's some insidious whatever going on, especially now that the mayor is whatever the mayor is. The only thing that the vote thing that the guy in the front of the class in St. John's and Queens ever, really, it was once a year I get to vote for, one white guy. Until, Obama came along, and then it was ugh, yeah, I'm still voting for the white guy. But there's no items. Like, what are we voting for? Like, is this is active participation for what? And then I hear how some of the celebrities speak of it. On The View today, they're speaking and talk about, like, not turning your backs on one another, and using your real name. There's some talk about this big lie. I have no idea what that's about. Whoopi Goldberg's like, oh, and the more we find out, and I'm sitting here like, where? Like, there's no one on the street talking about Trump. I mean, I walk the streets of Bayside. There's not a word being spoken about Trump. There's not a word being spoken about anything. There's a bunch of foreigners that walk the streets and talk different languages, none of them English. And every now and again, I see a local that now that I'm walking the street for exercise, I run into every now and again. Their faces look familiar, so you say good afternoon. I mean, in a respectful manner. But there's nobody speaking anything at street level. So if, like, Care Bears is one umbrella, Brady Bunch is another umbrella of, like, when things worked way back when, before we all arrived at Gen X, and now with next gens, it gets a little confusing. Then I noticed, so they're all talking about, so Bill Maher was talking about Hollywood, how they're the most awoke. I mean, they're the most prestigious and elite, I would think, because they're the ones who have the money and the writers and, like, the forecast. I was watching The Time Traveler's Wife. Not all of those episodes, by the way, are, I mean, like, some of it is the frivolous. I mean, I can see where they went totally off topic, but someone insisted that they put it in just to throw, like, the Snoop Dogs off track. And so, but I am sitting there watching. It has a couple of different layers of this conversation between these two men in love with the same woman being totally different. There's a St. John's reference to, well, now I look more like her, but in high school they said I looked like somebody. She's the one I went to Tom's River with in the Honda, or for the Honda. And she wound up marrying whatever, it looks like something like this, mention up here with the guy who's really beat up. But then there was also this other thing that happened at Chase, which leads me back to The View, of a Rangers game, whatever, in a kind of sort of a not really type of a way. And so I'm not quite sure where they're going with these mentions on this big thing and this big overlap of time travel, because, like, I mean, there is a portion of the population where they had upfront knowledge, like, about pandemics. Like, he even writes on the thing, he goes, here in 2021, he's like, you're going to invest in masks. And he hands the Post-it note to the guy. And I'm like, how are, like, there's some people already living in the future benefiting off of this, and then there's the, like, leftovers and the forgottens. And then I see references of it, and then today, in the regular news, like, talk about all the different media options. There's the local current events, in what, like, the riptide from what's living in the future, but back in the past that led up to this. I mean, and then I'm living here in the now, and I'm like, this does not look like anyone won. My whole entire life showed up as somebody made a whole lot of bad decisions, and it looks like it was purposely to hurt me. Just being honest. So here we are. So they're talking about gun violence, and they're talking about the movies. And the movies are like, they're now talking like they're going to rewrite the scripts. Yeah, because again, there's at some level, they program the youth into what they're going to fulfill and live into. I'm having, in my current situation, not getting into guns and gun control and bipartisan, but just in a research, like with my son, and it's niente pistole oggi. So for at the moment, adesso, mais non, en français, I'm not comfortable. There's a street level mixed crowd that turns their back on my son constantly. They constantly try to look my son in the eye. And then they run around with guns and try to shoot my son with water. So they've been good this week not shooting him with water, although there are mishaps, which in other family news there shouldn't even be one, but here we are. I'm in a really bad situation and I can't get myself out of it again. And I won't let him run around with it. And I keep telling the kids from other countries, I'm like, listen to me. It's a sign of aggression and war. Do not shoot my son. Because there are some really crazy people that, I mean, in places I can't reach, and I don't want my son labeled as some kind of hyper-aggressive, gun-toting whatever, as if, and then trying to make him look bad. So I'm like, you know what, Anthony, I was like, you want to play, you want to go in the sprinkler, you want to go play basketball, you want to run, great. I want you to have the exercise, I want you to have the social whatever, but it's like, it is like walking on broken glass right now. I don't know which way's up. I don't want him to fall any further than I've been thrust into based on the crappy life events that were thrown into my face. And I don't know how to get him to a higher level of anything since the level of education in New York has taken a turn for the worse as well. On top of, while he's in class, there's some really weird psychological torture, like what they talk about in like some of the other countries they're doing inside of a New York City school system. And I don't even have, like, there's no family inside this New York school system that I can even see. It's all taken a turn for, like, it's turned real dark. So now, how does one survive? I mean, he needs some form of an education. I don't know what the hell he's going to do in the real world. And I don't really see, like, John Cena goes to see some Down syndrome kid who got taken out of Ukraine, and it's like, oh my gosh, one white guy did something nice for some other kid. Great. Okay, I have some serious issues. Like, I mean, like, how do you get in touch with somebody in, like, the Brady Bunch umbrella category if you've got some real serious issues turning real dark in matter in New York, on top of other things I got going on in health ministry and like FDA level stuff going on top of the weather stuff, and then on top of the human population. I mean, where does one reach for help? So this is where they mention Brady in just the 5-letter, again, there's a lot of 5-letter patterns, but this one they mention in some charitable thing with whatever, and I know there's a Brady Bunch, like, movie thing where there was a mom, there was a dad, and then there's a couple of adopted kids.
Some in Hollywood are taking a hard look at the role movies play in glorifying guns. In the wake of wave after wave of mass shootings across the country, more than 200 creators signed an open letter urging the industry to reconsider how it portrays gun violence on screen.
And again, with no lawyers in the family, with no lawyers to even discuss possibilities of what could be happening to us, how we could be targeted right now, and how to best navigate this incredibly difficult situation? There's nothing. I don't even have crickets at this point.
ABC's Kaylee Harton with more.
There's major star power behind an effort to rewrite the script on how guns are used in Hollywood. Over 200 top actors, writers, producers, and directors signing an open letter pledging to be mindful of on-screen gun violence and model gun safety best practices, encouraging their colleagues to join them. Backed by the Brady Gun Violence Organization, Jimmy Kimmel, Amy Schumer, Shonda Rhimes, and J.J. Abrams are among the big names enraged by the recent mass shootings.
That's all I need on that. And here, this one, The View, it's S25E180.
Trump's fraud claims.
Actually, it's S25E181.
It's like, you know, are his donors going to care that they gave him a whole bunch of money just to, you know, wave and spend on what he wanted to?
They should be so pissed off.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Trump raised $250 million saying that it's all going to go into this campaign against what he calls the big lie. It's really, he's the one who's been lying. But all that money is supposed to support getting him back into office. Mm-hmm. When in fact, it was used, this kills me. $60,000 was used to pay Kimberly Guilfoyle to introduce her boyfriend, Donald Jr. That comes to $400 a second.
What? At the January 6th rally.
This is how confused the public is, especially, like, at this level. Like, I just needed, like, a Care Bear, like, representative for, like, one life to live and enjoy it and have a respectable place in the family. Instead, this erupted. For what? For bread and circus while, like, they're buying gin in other people's dynasty and helping fund, like, other necrotic events to happen. And, like, my evidence is in one of the other journalistic delights that they put out. And I don't know if they get threatened with sanction, and then they put together scripts, and then they put together these artwork pieces hidden in some shell somewhere, and then hope that people don't discover them or know what the real deal is about. I mean, again, it gets really confusing when you're stuck, like, as the gum at the bottom of someone's shoe, and they keep walking all over you your whole life. Here's part of the time traveler's wife, which is E1, S1, E5. This goes back to two parts. One has to do with Chase, I believe. I don't really know the integration of why respectable, what I wanted to marry was taken away in such a position where it was like, I'm coming back for you, I'm coming, but, like, no time frame, no words, no anything. After this crazy donkey thing happened where I said I didn't want any part of that. And then it goes to this weird whatever with possibility of somebody funding somebody else, because he knows that the one is really in love with this one girl. And again, I see where they're going with the storyline. There's a lot of pieces here. I've been through a lot, and I've witnessed a lot.
pretty beat up. But you should get away with that in a low light.
Yeah. It get worse when I time travel.
I know, comrade.
Now, he calls him comrade, which is a very Russian, Polish, whatever. At least it is in my world. Or it has been in the way that this area has scripted in this English. What's really interesting is that in real world, there was one country that was referenced with a guy that looked like this, which was a war my grandfather fought, but he said he was Greek. I didn't think he was Greek, but again, I didn't really know. But then meeting Pete, who is Greek, and Tina, who is Greek, and they're a different kind of Greek, but not really knowing their history or anything, I just was like, yeah, okay, you're Greek, sure. And then the Polish chick kept calling him the Greek, and I'm like, why are you giving him that level of nickname? Again, I just met you people, but this is a problem on epic scales.
Why'd you say that, comrade?
I'm part Polish. Well, my family is. And Poland used to be communist, right? So they all used to call each other comrade.
That's a reason for us to do it.
Well, you never questioned it till now.
No, for me.
And then the chase reference is a whole nother area of the world. Not Greek, not Polish, just another lettered pattern word. But it had that Lindquist and the 3-0, just in case Care Bears, ultra terrestrial and remote viewer, who clearly defined a surprise party that I didn't know and was confusing when I was trying to explain between an 11 and an 8-3. I think there were 2 8-3s. I don't know. Again, how does one tell you what's real and what's not, and how does one get out of this hole? To be 43, not have a penny to your name, not be able to find a job, not even be healthy enough for a workout, being intoxicated by the food because it's so processed with chemicals that you can't even avoid because it's somebody else is buying the food and you're just lucky to be eating. And then to have a personal space where you try to organize your thoughts, your notebook, your journal, your whatever. And then the minute you step out and go somewhere, for them to rummage through your stuff and then throw out your belongings and then tell you, how dare you say anything about it? In that really mentally abusive relationship, right? That's where I'm at in age 43, and I have no way out of this. So, if there's anyone who has, some advice in the surprise party that I didn't know I was walking into, but would have, again, Care Bears being what they are.
It's 2008. I just met you.
2008. I forget, do you like me yet?
Do I ever like you?
Yeah, we've got something in common at least.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
We're in love with the same woman.
You don't hide it very well, you know that? Comrade. Way too obvious. Claire knows, I know. Jesus, Charisse must have noticed something. Does Charisse know?
Yes. The answer is yes. I'm afraid you do like me.
In Spider-Verse, the View personnel, at National Interest or National Inquiry. And then the chase, and then the high school portion, and then someone else who might have been assigned characteristics or names or whatever in a bigger conversation of neural network kids that don't want to turn their back on one another, but like some of you are just so out of my league, and I slipped so far below the surface, and I'm still myself, but there's these things and people that I don't know how to build myself a life and get away from them.
So how am I doing in that? No, whatever year this is.
You're still around.
Yeah. But I figured what with my condition, not in it for the long haul. Can't see this working out when I'm old.
Yeah, well, you're still around in 2022.
Oh, yeah? Wait until I'm not so you can swoop in as soon as I'm out of the picture.
I have a problem with you being out of the picture, which is complicated and kind of exhausting.
What's that?
That'll break my heart. We're best friends, Henry. You'll learn to live with it. Or do you think there's some other reason why I just saved your ass by walking up to a bunch of psycho bikers and lying to them about some cameras?
It's so interesting between hugs and tugs and that word heart. And there's an ear in the middle of it. National Inquiry, and then how things are written, and what things you stand for and what things you don't.
There weren't any cameras?
Of course there weren't any fucking cameras.
Shit.
What?
Thanks. I do like you.
I know.
How can I like someone as hot for my future wife?
Oh, because things change over time. For instance, these days, I'm hot for your current wife. I'll tell you what doesn't change though.
What?
I know it's hopeless. I've known she was in love with you since before I knew who you were, or even if you were a real person.
You're gonna have to explain that one to me.
I saw the drawing.
What drawing?
The drawing Claire did of you.
What? You could tell from her drawing.
Have you seen it yet? Face like yours. Drawing like that. I figured she had to be in love.
For me, that's just Leonardo da Vinci's sketches reference. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way Universe, Galaxies Broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.